All right, welcome back once again, Howligans. I am Joe. I'm joined again by my beautiful and serene co-host, Ryan.
Damn right.
We're here. We're here to review a movie that just came out today being Wednesday, the 31st, not whatever day
Of
you're
March
listening to
2021.
us, technically. Godzilla vs. Kong. It was a big budget, blockbuster, action, adventure movie that we just watched.
It's the movie you get when you put all your stats into attack and none into intelligence.
I mean, I like that. That's an interesting way to look at this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, it depends on maybe if you've watched the two preceding movies for this. Godzilla had its own movie, as did Kong, and some of the aspects of those have been brought into these. But I watched the original Godzilla one that led up to this. He has not seen either one of them. I did not see the Kong movie. I don't know if those are necessarily needed.
See, I've been around long enough, and I've had friends who are Godzilla fans long enough to assume there's no continuity between these movies. Because that's how it used to be. They try to reboot the franchise every couple of years, and it doesn't work. Like we were talking about, the last one I saw was the Matthew Broderick one, and they had a little tease at the end. There's like an egg left. And it's like, oh, something's going to happen. But they never continued that. And then this new one came out like, well, is this the egg? Is that what this? Nope.
No, not at all.
Bryan Cranston wasn't enough to get me into the theater. Although this had a great cast.
I mean, true. To be fair, that Godzilla movie, I mean, there was a lot of science, bitch, in that movie. Mm-hmm. So, but no, not enough to bring you in.
No. This one, the cast though, like once I start, I mean, just the first few people you see. There's a guy. I'm not going to name names because I don't remember their names, and I'm not looking them up. But there's the guy that plays Lucius in Gotham, which I got really excited about because I like him a lot. But he's in it for like the first 7 seconds, and then that's it. When it's revealed where Kong really is, he's not on his island. He's in some kind of containment area.
Okay.
The girl, the main scientist.
Her name is Eileen in the movie.
Okay. Yeah, the one who's studying Kong.
Mm-hmm.
She was in
Iron Man 3.
She was in Iron Man 3.
And
she was in Dorian Gray.
Mm-hmm.
The Ben Barnes one from 2008, I think. And I really liked her in that. So I was excited to see her. I mean, and she's fine. Mm-hmm. She's fine in this. Everybody does their job, I think, the way they're supposed to. You've got the guy that played, what do we say his name was? Eric in True Blood? Mm-hmm. Skarsgård, one of the Skarsgårds. He's in this.
Plays Nathan in this. Scientist, random scientist, Nathan.
Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown, right?
Yes.
Who was 11 in Stranger Things. I only watched the first season, and that was like when it first came out. Anyway, you get the point. There's a lot of people in this.
Yeah, but nobody
the concierge,
with a huge name.
The concierge from the hotel in John Wick, who it's kind of weird that they wasted him. He is so good.
Yeah, he was in it for
like a couple seconds. Yeah, he was just like one of the guys on the side, like, look at the thing that's happening. Here's a little bit of exposition, and now I'm out. Yeah. I guess he just had like a boat payment to make that month, and he was like, how much can I make? Well, I only really need, this much, so I guess I'll do one line.
Okay, well, whatever works. But I like him too. It is a waste to see him in something and not actually be used in the way he should. So this is going to be, are we spoiling stuff in this?
I don't think it's possible to spoil it. That little 3-minute satirical mini, like the puppet video that I sent you, that was, here's an early leak of Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes.
That accurately predicted what was going to happen. We all knew.
Yeah. And shortly into this movie, I predicted, I'm like, oh, I bet I know where this is going. Mm-hmm. And it absolutely went there. It was nothing that happens in this movie is anything that you're like, there's no twist, I guess you could say. What's a twist? No. But I don't need that in all of my movies. Especially, I mean, this should just be a sit back, enjoy, shove some popcorn in your face, and watch a big, fun action movie.
Yeah, when there are 20 or 30 movies like this already, it's hard to kind of keep reusing the same characters and setting them up in different ways and not accidentally telegraph exactly what you're going to do.
But that's kind of your job as a Hollywood director, producer, writer, to subvert our expectations, to make us think one thing is going to happen and to take it in a different direction.
Well,
and those are the movies that, for one reason or another, you're going to remember. Like you're not remembering any performance in this movie. There's no Oscar nods for what happened in this. I don't even know. I mean, yeah, there had to be people in it, I guess, to drive some of the story forward. But all you want to watch is some big monsters fighting. And, I mean, I guess you got that.
Yeah. I don't know what I want to say about it. It's exactly what I expected. It's kind of like the Batman versus Superman of this monster universe, because it seems like they're trying to set up a cinematic universe for monsters.
Yeah.
I mean, there was supposed to be a Monster one based on the old school Mummy, Frankenstein sort of thing.
Yeah,
that apparently died off with that one that Tom Cruise was in. I never saw it.
Oh, yeah, the Mummy?
Wasn't
whatever
it
it was
a
called.
Mummy movie?
It was, for sure.
Was there
I
another
didn't watch
one?
it either.
Okay. I don't know if they did more than one of them, or if they did that one and it bombed.
Yeah,
so
it was
they just
supposed to
didn't do
be
them again?
like Dracula 2000 or something that came out recently, and then the I, Frankenstein movie that came out with Aaron Eckhart.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was all supposed to be part of this one universe and try and, like, lead into something, because I guess that's what everything has to be now.
Do you think
Marvel did it, and so it worked so well. Every other studio is trying to come up with a way to, how can we get onto this cash cow?
Yeah. How do we, with as little creative energy as possible,
Right?
get this repeat business? So, I don't know. Maybe saying who should play this deep intellectual monster, and they thought, let's get the guy from Thank You for Smoking, and maybe that wasn't the right decision, because that's what he was in.
Yes.
If you ever saw that.
Yeah.
It's a weird leap.
A little. But, you know,
I mean, he was Two-Face in anyway, I'm going away from my original point. It seems like they're trying to set up a universe that I didn't know they were doing, because I didn't know there was more than one of these before this. I thought there was that Godzilla movie, and then I knew there was some kind of Kong thing that I never saw, but I thought that was kind of a joke movie. I never saw it. I saw the previews.
Yeah, I didn't see it
and it looked
either.
ridiculous. And we watched that Cracked video where they were making fun of it. And they do the same thing in this movie, where they have a plane capable of firing a missile for 20 or 30 miles, and they fly right up Kong's ass crack to, like, do whatever it is they're going to do. Why do they need to do that? They don't need to do that. There's no reason. There's no reason to get within distance of, like, the tail swipe of Godzilla or within Kong's reach to try to fight them as a human with modern weapons and all that stuff. But it wouldn't look cool if it was just humans from 20 miles away, like, well, hit him with a missile. That didn't work. Hit him again. You know, that'd be pretty boring. But we all knew that this was going to be the Batman versus Superman of these monsters. Nobody saw Batman versus Superman and thought, oh, I wonder if one of them's just going to win and then it's going to be over. Everybody knew they were going to team up against somebody else. I don't think anybody was pleased that it was Doomsday. Spoiler alert, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Or that Doomsday would come about in that way, because it's real different from the comics.
Real different.
Real different from the video games, real different from anything else. He's actually had a pretty consistent origin, that character. He's real simple. He smash.
Yeah.
That's what he do.
Just
he doesn't really talk.
Doomsday kill.
If
all
he
he does.
could talk, he would just be like, kill, smash. Yeah, so you knew exactly what this was going to be. You know what was going to happen. And it starts off with just such strange, illogical things, like the little girl who's in Kong's enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's reaching out, and he reaches out to her and, like, looks at her, and he's looking at the little Kong doll that she made. And if you're in a highly secure government, military, UN, whoever is doing this kind of enclosure, they're not going to be bringing their kids to work and letting them wander into the enclosure. Does this make sense?
It does, but this little girl is like the key to everything that has to do with Kong. So,
she's essential to the story. There's no doubt about that. But there's no reason why she would be in there. That kid years ago who fell into the gorilla pit or whatever at the zoo that was all over the news, and the gorillas just took him and, like, took care of him. And then when the people came in, they're like, here's your little human back. Guarantee you they didn't let that kid back into the gorilla pit for visits. They weren't like, well, he was fine before, so let's just open the door and let him in there. And the gorillas were like, hey, how you doing? Here's a banana. Like, sit down and,
let's have some
catch
tea.
up.
Yeah.
No.
I thought it very interesting how in the very beginning of this movie, it shows Kong, like, waking up and then doing a bunch of human type stuff.
Yeah, he's walking down this stream scratching his ass.
Right, he's like getting a shower and I'm like, what? Like, and it was something that happened in this movie. when I'm watching them fight and do things, it's not like when you see animals attack each other. Like if you see that, if you have animals and they play fight, cats, dogs, whatever, or you watch Discovery Channel and you see that animals attacking one another for whatever reason, or attacking people, they attack things like animals do. They don't fight like people fight. In this, it was like two human beings in big suits fighting the way humans would fight. That's what I thought the whole time.
I didn't
Punch,
think
feint,
it was quite
dodge,
that
slip. Like what? What is even going on? A little bit of it, they did some stuff that I guess animals might do, but I'm watching it like that's not gorilla. A gorilla doesn't do moves.
Don't they?
He does rage, and they just tear you apart. They literally just rip you apart, and that's not. Which I guess for wanting to make it a fun to watch Hollywood, kind of like in Pacific Rim. I felt that you have people and big robots fighting these monsters. I felt like those monsters, for the most part, acted the way a monster would, like a animalistic mind.
There was a clear difference between the humans who were strategizing and what the monsters were doing. And I thought that would be, well, I don't want to spoil too much, although we already said we were going to. So turn back now if you're worried about it. But when they introduced the Mechagodzilla and this weird uplink system that they have where it's a human merging with it, it's like, okay, so we already saw that they have kaiju in this world. And now they have these mech suits.
Right.
And they're controlled by a person. The person is bonding to it. They don't use the term drifting or whatever it was in that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a guy who's in the thing. He's in the technology. The technology is something I wanted to complain about. It doesn't. This is why I said no points in intelligence. That dude was sitting in his van in the parking lot of this place doing a podcast with no microphone and radio equipment. How many radios are there in this room that we're transmitting through? I don't see any. I don't usually hook any up.
Believe there is any at all. You got a hidden radio somewhere under the table, maybe, that I'm not seeing.
And when I'm done editing, I don't hook up my laptop to a radio and broadcast anything out. That's not how podcasts or the internet works. And then, there are just these moments. Like, there's a point where Bernie, who I don't know if I mentioned, did I? It's the guy that was the orderly on Joker, the one who actually gives him the files on his mother.
Yes.
I like that guy.
Yeah.
He just seems like a super likable guy, which I think was a good casting choice, just as an aside. He is very likable. So it makes up for the fact that he is crazy in this movie. Like, not crazy and right. He's crazy and like 10% right. He thinks there's something screwy going on with this company, and he's right. But he's also telling people like tap water makes you more
susceptible to being controlled.
Yeah, and manipulated. And he showers with bleach and all this other stuff. Like
I had mentioned to you, he reminded me very much of the guy in Eight-Legged Freaks who was the conspiracy theorist, and he had his own little, like an actual radio show. Like he put out his own radio program on his own little broadcast. And that's almost who I thought it was in the beginning, hearing his voice. It was so much like is it that guy? And then it wasn't that guy. It was this other guy.
Yeah. But to go on with the technology thing, there's a point where he pops up. They've infiltrated an Apex location.
Apex is the big bad company in this movie. Just by the way, it's everything that's wrong. They're the bad guys.
Yes, and part of what is wrong is the CEO is building all these buildings immediately after watching Tron Legacy, because that's what all the buildings look like. His little office where it views where they're building and testing the Mechagodzilla looks exactly like Clue's sort of hangout in Tron Legacy.
Okay.
I was like, there's something about this. Is it cyberpunk? It looks a lot like cyberpunk.
It does.
I think it's more like Tron, though, because there are all these places where there's a lot of light that doesn't do any good. Like, there are light bars and stuff going up and down the walls, but they're weird colors. They're super bright. They don't cast any light. They're just like, oh, here's a bright spot, and the rest of the room is dark. But yeah, there's a point where he pops up out of this hatch and is taking pictures with a really old flip phone that obviously has no camera on it. We didn't go back to check, but I saw no camera lens. He's just, and that thing would have had
old school, like shutter?
Fake shutter noise.
Fake shutter noise?
And it clearly would have been like 640 by 480 resolution. Oh my God. You could have printed that on a postage stamp maybe, and it would have looked kind of sharp. But it's just, there's so many technology choices that are weird. The weirdest one is when they find their way into the Hollow Earth, which I guess is the thing they set up in the previous movies, because I don't know anything about it.
Not in the Godzilla one that I know of, but whatever. Maybe the Kong Skull Island.
But Apex is looking for a power source. He's looking for, I guess, the thing that powers Godzilla, because Godzilla runs on like Duracells or something. And they find it. Kong puts this axe down in the ground, and a notch he notices is kind of shaped for it, and the ground lights up like there's a fossilized Godzilla in there. And the CEO of Apex is kind of charismatic. You know, he's untrustworthy, clearly. But his daughter is an asshole. And that's her whole character thing. I knew the instant we saw her for the first time that she was going to die. Because they never make a character that bad if they don't intend to kill her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
She came in and she was like, hey, I'm just here to babysit you and whatever. And, you know, the technology that we brought to you, well, let's not worry about the cost. But let's say it's, you know, makes your stuff look like Fisher-Price toys or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and the amount of energy the engines produce could power Vegas for a week and all this stuff.
1.21 gigawatts.
Ooh. It's like, ooh, it's foreshadowing.
Right.
There were a lot of moments like that where there was foreshadowing, but they made her extraordinarily unpleasant. She was a very typical, I am better than you, I am funding your thing, I have my own my own goals here. I clearly don't give a shit about you. You shouldn't trust me. Let's go do this mission together.
Yeah, right.
Like,
what possible bad thing could happen?
Yeah, it's
from that?
so cliched, especially when they made the main CEO guy a little bit less two-dimensional. It bothered me. Like, clearly that guy's the bad guy, but he doesn't seem that bad. He's hiding it. There are these moments where he's forceful. You know, guys like, we should be careful about that. Like, get in the chair. You know, kind of loses his temper a little bit. But with her, they just made her so nasty. It's like, okay, she's going to die at some point because they want to make the audience dislike somebody. You know, it's a trope that movies do, though, to make a character very negative and unlikable, regardless of anything else about them. I mean, they could be the CEO of a hospital or something and doing really good work, but you know they're the bad guy and you know something bad's going to happen to them if they're jerks through the whole movie, if there's nothing redeeming about them, and there was nothing redeeming about her.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't even realize they had any people with them until the guards double-crossed them.
Right.
When they're there and the power source comes up. So my question is, how do they know it was a power source? It lit up. You could break a glow stick and drop it on the ground. It would look the same. How did they know that was a power source? How did the little robo spider thing go over, take a little sample, scan it, and then all of a sudden Mechagodzilla has all the power he needs? I mean, I guess it's kind of like when I go and run out, like when I run out of gas and I look up a picture of gasoline on my phone and then my car has gas in it again.
Is that how it works?
It's how it works for me. I have the same kind of car that they produce. I have an Apex car. And I guess the last one I'll bring up is the Godzilla beeper. That's what I'm calling it. Because Kong is sitting there. He's like, oh, this is a pretty cool place. No explanation, by the way, when they go to Hollow Earth and he finds that like temple. It's clearly manufactured.
Yes.
There are cut stones, there are pathways, there are ledges, there are walls, there are pillars. No explanation. There are statues. No explanation. No creature there capable of doing something like that as far as we can tell. But anyway, there's a point where Kong was like, oh, here's a little notch. I'm going to stick this thing in there. And then when he does, we see the stuff light up that I was talking about before. And then Godzilla is on the surface in Hong Kong. And he's like, oh, I'm getting a page on my back scales. And he goes, I'm charging my attack.
He sure did.
Yeah. He charges up his...
It was like Godzilla's version of a Kamehameha.
Yeah. And he just blasts into the ground until it goes to the center of the earth, and then he's looking down. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And Kong's looking down for him as well. And he's like, what are you doing? And just climbs back up out of there. I don't understand. I don't understand how the Godzilla beeper works. I don't understand how the power source works. I don't understand if that has anything to do with Godzilla at all. I don't know if that scale... I don't understand if the scale that's part of the axe is from our Godzilla. The Godzilla that we see in the movie, or if it's an ancestor of it. If this is a thing that's been going on for a while, like Kong rules or Kong's family, whatever, rules that area and Godzilla someplace else.
I kind of felt like it was an ancestor kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's not, but there's no
explanation.
No explanation.
There's also no explanation as to, they talk about how difficult it is to get between there and our world, and they go through this like wormhole thing, and there's no explanation for that. There's a point where Skarsgård, whatever whatever his character name was.
Nathan.
He's saying we're about to go like however many miles in 2 seconds. And then
1,000 miles in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and then we're going to invert our gravity and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And they do this like wormhole thing. They don't explain why. There's no explanation as to why it's not. I mean, when they first talk about the problem is gravity inverts, and it crushed the people that were in that vessel because they didn't know it was going to happen.
Which was his brother, and like he's, talks about it a little bit, and before they're going on the mission, it has him like looking at this picture of him and his brother, and then that's it. That's all you ever hear about as far as that part of his character arc for the remainder of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I guess that's just a thing that happens. There's just questionable decisions in this movie.
Well, the thing that makes that one so weird in particular is that Godzilla just goes bleh and fires his Kamehameha out of his mouth into the ground and then can just look down and see Kong, and they can see each other and hear each other. So do they experience a wormhole if they go through that?
I mean,
or why was there a wormhole where they were at before? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Like, I wanted to know in the very beginning of the movie when Godzilla first shows up and he's going after this Apex installation where they're developing maybe not the actual mecha Godzilla, but one of the pieces for it or something.
Yeah.
They weren't very clear on that, but I'm sorry, how does he know that that's there? What's some sort of echolocation we don't understand?
Yeah, if he can sense monsters and things like that, why did he go after the parts? We know later he went after the one facility because they had monsters.
Right.
Specifically had monsters to test against their Mecha Godzilla.
The whole needing this super advanced ship to get where they need to get reminded me of the movie The Core. Reminded
me also of WandaVision. The special truck to drive through the barrier. I was like, that shit ain't gonna work. They're just gonna have the guys get out and walk. They're just gonna fall through it, which is what Kong did. He just fell through it.
He fell right through it, no problem. Why is it?
He even like slipped.
They're biomechanical creatures. They're humans. And they needed this super special ship to make it, but Kong doesn't.
I mean, they wouldn't have survived, I guess, the fall at the very end, where like gravity inverts and it goes into like a normal free fall instead of this wormhole thing. But it doesn't make any sense.
So one of the first interactions with Kong and Godzilla, they're transporting Godzilla to where they need to go, and they're using. He's on a big ship, which I'm sure was in the previews, all chained up on the ship.
It was, yeah.
Okay, so one of the first things I have a problem with movies that do this. They establish something in the movie, and then they completely disregard it, like in the very next scene. So when you first have Nathan go to meet Eileen on the bridge of this ship where they can look out on the deck and see Kong sitting there, and he like looks at the screen, and it says he is 88% sedated. Like whatever they're using, they're hitting him with a high level of it to keep him, from not turning into a rage monkey.
And they want to make him like Fonzie. And what's Fonzie like? He's cool.
He's cool.
Be cool, man.
Be cool. He says, hey, we might not want to, we need him to lead us somewhere. We don't want to, him to be all drugged out.
Yeah.
And in like the very next scene, the scientist lady, Eileen, had talked about as soon as we take him out of this complex on Skull Island that we have made for him, which how you make that around Godzilla or Kong, I don't know, whatever.
That was a problem too. They wanted to contain Kong because Godzilla will go after any other Titan type creatures.
Right.
But Kong, as far as I understand it from the previous movie, was undiscovered on an island by himself. So what it looks like is in this movie, they have imprisoned him in a special facility to hide him on the island he was already hidden on with no humans anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The way you're looking at me is like, yes, this doesn't make sense. You're not missing anything.
But Godzilla shows up and shows up because of Kong. That's who he's going after. Mm-hmm. And she's saying, well, you have to release him so he has a fighting chance. Okay, I mean, I get that. How do you have a fighting... Like, if you're going to throw two UFC fighters in the ring on stat-wise, look at their stats. They're fairly evenly matched with fight histories and size, weight, all that. Maybe even what style martial arts they use. But then you take one and you sedate him by like 88%, and you throw them in the ring together. Just my thought. What do you think's going to happen when those two fighters clash?
Yeah. And I'm assuming that somebody there has had surgery before, so they know what it's like to have been sedated and come out of it. Kong basically rolled off an operating table and like was in a fight for his life and knew what was up.
Yep.
Like really quickly in it, the physics made no sense.
Oh my gosh.
Godzilla is swimming around in his back spike scale things because he's some kind of stegosaurus monster.
Right, yes.
Go through ships, like just slice through them. No problem at all. He's like ripping ships apart.
Yep, no problem.
And Kong is on the container ship like, I can't with these chains. How do I get these chains off? How is this thing going to fight that thing? If that thing can just walk up, swim up, kind of take one step onto one of these ships and just start ripping it apart, rip it in half, drag pieces of it around. Why is the other one a threat to him at all? That'd be like me fighting your 10-year-old.
Right.
It's like...
It doesn't... Not a fair battle?
Not the way they portray it, no, because the power differential is so huge. And the physics, I think a lot of it is just the physics. The physics don't make any sense.
And
we talked about how Kong was jumping from ship to ship. He jumps from like the tanker ship to, he sees that there's an aircraft carrier.
Right. It's like a couple ships away.
Yeah, there's a destroyer or something in between. So he jumps onto that destroyer. Same kind of ship. Godzilla just cut in half with it, like because he swam too close to it. And it's definitely way too small. It'd be like me jumping onto a pool noodle to try to propel myself to the next thing. He just would have like broke that ship in half and pushed it underwater if he landed on it and immediately tried to push back off.
Yeah.
And jump again.
But he jumps quite a ways into the air off that ship.
Yep.
Because that's how physics work.
Yeah.
But they don't. See, in movies like this, when you're supposed to, like an Avengers movie, a superhero movie, or stuff where it's okay for you to have some suspension of disbelief. That's fine. But when I see things with my eyes and physics-wise, I know it doesn't work. It takes me out of it so much. It becomes now it's just laughable. I can't believe it at all because it's something that can't happen. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's the rules of nature and physics and the world in which we live in.
For me, the problem comes down to what they've already established. Because you could make the argument that we don't know the physics when you're at that scale with one of these ships. If it was like a solid piece of metal, it might be different. But, a large ship is made by humans. Its pieces bolted together, whatever. But we've seen that Kong and Godzilla are fairly close in strength. We've also seen within the same few seconds and in the same scene, Kong struggling with chains and cuffs and things like that are small pieces of metal from his perspective. Mm-hmm. While we were watching Godzilla ripping apart ships. That doesn't make any sense. Also, why was the container ship one that they weren't just ripping apart? When they were ripping apart battleships, ships that have hardened hulls that are meant to take damage and not sink versus a ship that's just meant to bring you whatever weird stuff you ordered from that Russian seller on Etsy. Okay, so I just had to take a break because I started having a coughing attack. So I took an allergy pill. Got some tap water that's making me a little bit more pliable.
Absolutely.
A little bit more manageable because there's fluoride in it. And the Nazis came up with that or whatever they say in this movie.
Jesus.
But yeah, we were
talking about this ship battle.
Complaining about it, yeah.
And the last thing about this battle that I didn't understand, I didn't get why it worked that way, was it Eileen or Nathan? One of the two of them I think it was Nathan, come up with the idea to shut it all down.
Yes. I actually wrote that down too.
Well, I'm sorry. To make Godzilla think of shut all the ships, all the power, shut everything off, which I don't even know if you can do on a ship like that. Can you even shut it all down? Is it like a boom?
It's like a big easy button.
Right.
Where you just
shut it all off. Even if you do that, Godzilla didn't come for the ships, the people. He's not. That just happens to be in his way getting to Kong. So why does shutting all that down make him stop?
Also, he comes out of the water like he's standing on something, which looked weird because he's swimming around. He's mostly in the water. And when he's mostly in the water, he's
like see him swimming and get lower in the water when they try and shoot at him.
It's like he's standing up. It's like he stands up on something and he looks and he's looking around and he looks and makes eye contact with Kong. And they're looking at each other, and he sees that the ships are still there. He's looking at it, and he has this aggressive, I'm gonna catch you in the parking lot kind of look on his face. And then he just goes back in the water well, I guess I've been foiled this time because you must be dead. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, unless we're supposed to assume that he's that dumb of a creature, but he's clearly not.
Clearly not. Because
he understands by the end what they're doing and that they're working together and whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I want to check my watch, see what my heart rate is. I'm getting upset.
Animals in the wild, and I've seen videos of this where two animals will be having some sort of a hostile interaction, and if a third animal wanders in on that situation, it's not like all of a sudden two animals are going to be like, "Ooh, we're going to team up against this animal." It's, well, shit, now all three of us are in this. You know, it's a Royal Rumble where there's three of us, not, all right, well, us two we're going to fight you, and then maybe we can get back to us afterwards. That's not how animals think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about this Mecha Godzilla situation.
Okay.
They didn't mention it, but I'm pretty sure Mecha Godzilla was made out of vibranium. Because as we talked about, battleships, things, Godzilla's just buildings, he just wrecks it all. He just wrecks all this stuff. Yet this big robot that they made is just withstanding blasts and strikes and attacks from Godzilla and Kong. Like, I don't even know. How does that work? It doesn't make any sense. Like, what did they do to make it so much stronger than every other thing human beings have? And maybe that was the idea behind it, I guess. We'll just have to say that it was, but it just felt a little strange to me that that's the way it worked. It was super up until when it wasn't, because they needed to win so that the end of the movie could happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have expected it to just get demolished.
Right?
I mean, immediately. Because Kong can heal, Godzilla can heal, the robot can't heal. And also, if we're just complaining about the kind of, the surface level stuff of like, well, how did that happen? They're controlling it by using the skulls of the psychically linked three-headed monster that Godzilla fought previously.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the bones still able to communicate psychically? Why are the bones able to screw up that connection and take over and become intelligent on its own? It was never designed to be intelligent on its own. It's designed to be controlled by a human. So how is this new force able to take it over, use it, understand what's going on, and use like the weapons and all that stuff? None of that
because
really
of the hollow earth energy.
So that woke it up.
Yeah, because it woke it up.
The no brain that was in that was in
yep.
that not total skull that was just a piece of
that fried the guy who was trying to pilot it.
Vibranium.
Is
it vibranium?
It's vibranium.
There's this concept I've heard of called, I think it's God of the Gaps. And maybe I'm getting it wrong how it's supposed to be used, but it was one of these things, I've heard it kind of referred to in a joking way, that anything that happens in science, any gaps in what science is able to explain, well, that's God. Like, it's something that we don't understand. We don't know why it happened that way. It's God. It's even insurance policies will have acts of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just vibranium. It's vibranium of the gaps.
Absolutely.
When there's a gap in what makes sense, it's Kryptonian technology, it's vibranium, it's, any of these technologies that make everything work.
I thought that when they were first, they go to Antarctica because that's where the opening is for them to originally have Kong lead them to where they needed to get in the Hollow Earth. Which is, this movie turns into like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Mm-hmm. It ends up turning into that. But as they're going there, there's this big underground complex that I guess they've made. Parts of it, there's scaffolding and, man-made stuff going to this wormhole thing.
Yeah, they basically built Ozymandias's Antarctic base.
So I'm pretty sure that the girders and beams that were up in the ceiling that were there to hold the ceiling up, Kong is swinging on those.
Yeah.
As he goes, and I'm like, oh, that one is not broke, and that one's not broke, and that one's not broke. Oh, they're not broke. Weird.
It's like in Futurama where they have the ship at the bottom of the ocean, right? And they're like, how much pressure can this take? And he's like, well, it's supposed to hold air in, not water out, so theoretically none. It's like it's supposed to hold the ground up, not Kong side to side and moving all over.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, I don't mind that so much. There are little goofy things that are like that. And some of the physics and the stuff that's going on the Hollow Earth is cool. It's a good spectacle.
Yeah.
It is fun to watch.
I like stuff like that.
What's happening just doesn't make any sense.
Where they take you to a world, and I didn't understand. So when they first break down into this Hollow Earth area, I saw the sun. Like there was a point in the sky light source that's like there's trees, lushness. In order to have plant life, you need sunlight, photosynthesis. Like there's sun in the middle of the earth.
You're blowing my mind. I didn't even think about that. I was thinking about the gravity and the weird floating rocks where Kong like touches one and he realized like, oh, because this is a big sphere, this is the point at which gravity starts to go towards the other side.
Right.
So I can jump up through this thing and then I'll come down onto the other part.
Which had a stone carved hand that looks like a big Godzilla hand or Kong hand.
But I didn't think at all about the light source.
Right.
I saw that and was like, oh, what? You just went into the center of the earth and there are monsters down here and you've screwed up. Because the first thing they do is encounter more monsters. It's like, yeah, you wanted to get down here? Good job.
And Kong just kicks the shit out of him real quick. That was nice.
Yeah.
That was fun. Like, that's the kind of thing I don't mind that. Like, all right, Kong's here. He's kicking the shit out of some monsters. All right, let's do this.
Best scene in the whole thing was, well, and it's another stupid one. The daughter of the bad guy, who is the bad guy babysitting them.
Mm-hmm.
They're flying out on their one ship. They're flying away. Godzilla has blasted that hole into the Kong temple at the center of the earth. Right. All that stuff's going on. Kong's looking at them. They're like thousands of miles away from each other, but they're looking and like roaring at each other through this hole. Because that makes sense.
Right.
But she's like, he's in the way. They're in a large open room. He's standing on one side of a pit. She's like, he's in the way. Shoot him. So they shoot him, and he kind of turns and looks at him, and they fly past him. Then he grabs their little ship, looks in it, like big old eyeball in front of it. Is my little friend in there? Nope. Crushes it like a Coke can.
It was so good.
It was so good.
That was good death. That was a good death.
I love that. The thing I really like is it's not just a typical like Jurassic Park thing. You see the eyeball up close to get the like scale of how big this thing is. Mm-hmm. He's looking to make sure like, is there anybody on here I care about? No? Crush.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was good. And that's how that character bit it. Well, that's what you get. I want to be able to say, if you can, and I know we're griping about this a lot and we're nitpicking certain things, and some of them are, they don't need to be nitpicked, and that's fine. Some of that is just kind of our job to do that when we do this. I want to say you can just sit back and just watch like this monster movie of big monster. I didn't, even for what it was, I didn't like it. I wanted to like it, but from the very beginning, like I said, he wakes up and he's acting not like a big ape. He's acting like a person.
Okay, but I think it's about context. I would have hated watching this movie alone, but we ordered some lunch. We're sitting there watching it together. We were joking about it. It was a fun movie to watch because they allocated a few of their points for charisma.
They did?
It was. Because there are little moments, the girl coming out when Kong's like on his own in the rain and he's sad and she reaches out her finger and he touches her and it's like, your finger's the whole size of that kid. There's no way you can feel that.
Right.
Can you find stuff like that with your fingertips? If there was something that small?
I cannot feel an ant walking around on the tip of my finger, and that's what that would be.
Yeah.
I can't feel, I can see it walking around there, and if it like walks on the little bitty fine hairs that I got, the hobbit hairs I got on my finger here, that I can feel that,
Yeah.
But otherwise,
we're totally nitpicking again, but it was one of these things where it's like, my girlfriend constantly tells me like, feel this, like blankets and pillows that have like a fleece texture or something to them. Mm-hmm. And I can't feel it. My fingertips are so hardened from some of the jobs I used to do. And just from being a person who uses their hands all the time, like I can't, okay. I assume the less I can feel it, the softer it is. Like, wow, I literally can't feel anything. That must be super soft. And it's like, if I was Kong, I'd just be like, squish. Oh, sorry, I didn't even feel her. I would have just put my finger down on the deck.
Yeah, like how do you reach out and just know, like.
How are you that gentle? I guess that's supposed to, God, I'm probably giving them more credit than they deserve, but that's probably supposed to like point to his intelligence. That he's clearly smart. Mm-hmm. And he's smart enough to be like, I really want to be super careful with this kid.
Yeah, that point had been established, that Kong kind of saved her after her family died in some big storm, whatever. Which I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with the relationship that is going on there.
Stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
Animals, I mean, there's a whole subreddit for it. Animals being bros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also another subreddit that we talked about when...
When I first saw Godzilla doing a roar, and it reminded me of something.
Yeah, and there was recently a post. There's a Subreddit I didn't know existed, and I don't know that I would endorse going there. But it is called "Don't Put Your Dick in That."
Oh my God. Whew. So I know we're going back to a gripe here, but something, and I don't like it when movies do this. When two characters are having an interaction, and it was Eileen and Nathan. They had just after the scene you just mentioned, with her goes out to Kong in the rain, and Eileen goes out there after her, and they find out that this little girl can communicate with Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that she has taught him, or has Eileen has been trying to teach him sign language, and she thought maybe that he there was some recognition going on there.
Yeah,
but
she said that they were starting to see familiarity, but they didn't know what he was getting.
There was no back and forth. There was no interaction.
Yeah.
Well, that he interacts, and he interacts with the little girl, and he talks to her that way. And Eileen and Nathan are having the conversation. Well, this little girl, she can, talk to him and, kind of tell him what to do. And Eileen is like, no, absolutely not. She's a little kid. We can't use it. Can't use her that way. And like the very next scene, they bring Kong to Antarctica again by sedating him 100% this time, even though Nathan had already said we don't want that to happen. But whatever. And he wakes up in the snow.
Well, they never specifically said that they sedated him, and he woke up when they put him down. So maybe he was just chilling.
Yeah, in a hammock. He was just chilling.
That's
in
absolutely
the
what it looked
hammock.
like. Yeah,
it did. Like he was just taking a nap.
Dude, I would pay so much for that Uber. Or just lay in a hammock and they just fly me where I'm supposed to go. And when they put me down, it's like pew, and it like makes that noise, so it wakes me up. Like,
all the cables release.
I'm here to do the podcast. All right,
nice. If you had like 50 drones carrying you across the city, that'd be great,
bro. I need more than 50. It'd have to be some big drones.
Big drones. But they immediately go to this little girl telling him what to do and kind of lying to him and saying, hey, there's more of your people down there, because he's kind of reluctant to want to go. Home. Oh, that's home. Okay. But he doesn't go. And so they say, no, we're not going to do this. Very next scene. Oh, I guess we're doing it now. What even is that? Like,
I did like that they didn't do anything particularly weird with the character. They had a very, okay, so the thing I've come to dislike about movies now, or a lot of the movies that we're seeing, is you tend to have one character who's super and can do everything. And this was a movie where it was great. Everybody complimented each other. You had the kid that played Fire Fist in Deadpool 2, who had some computer skills and figured out like some stuff to help at the end with the Mechagodzilla thing. You had Bernie, who, like we've established, was crazy, but was right about some of the stuff and knew what he was doing to get them into places. 11 was in this as the director's daughter.
Yeah.
And
one guy's daughter. I don't know. They established that.
Yeah, he's some kind of director or whatever.
For what we can't really tell. But
I'm sure it's in the previous movie.
It was from the original Godzilla movie.
Yeah, so she's there. She's worried about it because, I don't know. I mean, that's a little unrealistic. That's a lot unrealistic to have like kids listening to a podcast and be like, we have to go do something about this, and like actually get involved and go to Hong Kong, like end up in these places. But the way they do it kind of makes sense. A kid who is the kid of a person like that might have the resources to do something like that. A friend that smart might actually be able to hack something or figure stuff out. Yeah, nobody was like, Eileen? Was that her name? Mm-hmm. Eileen was not way smarter than Nathan. Nathan was not way braver than anybody else. They all grew a little bit. Nathan got a little braver. He was a little bit more comfortable around these Titan-type creatures. Eileen, I don't know that she grew a whole lot. But it was interesting. It was still interesting to see her journey. You got to see her interacting with this kid, trying to balance, like you're saying, no, we can't use the kid for this. But then realizing you have to. You have no other choice. This kid is the best way to communicate with this creature. This creature is what we need to save us and to achieve this goal. So it makes sense. It's balancing your responsibility as a parent or guardian with, letting the kid do what has to be done. That being said, it was still crazy that they brought that kid everywhere. That kid was all over. That kid's going to be messed up. Kid's going to be messed up because she's going to be like 30. Like, oh man, that one time.
Yeah, that one time.
Yep. She's like, I peaked at like 7. That was the epitome of my life experience.
That's why they took her everywhere, because in the very beginning of that, before they went anywhere, they were still on the Skull Island, I believe, or they might have been on a ship. right after they left. And she's talking to Eileen and says, well, I'm not a kid anymore. It's like, no, you are most definitely a kid.
Yeah.
You are, I don't know what mirror you looked in, but you are 1,000% still a kid.
All right. I don't like making myself feel old. But do you remember Lil Bow Wow?
Yeah.
I remember seeing an interview with Lil Bow Wow when he was like 15. And he talked about like when I was a kid. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about when you were a kid?
Right?
Like you're a rich kid, but you're a kid. Oh my God.
You can't drive a car yet, man. You're still a kid.
How old's Lil Bow Wow now? Is he like 70? Is he retired?
He might be.
I have no idea. That feels like so long.
He's bigger
ago.
Bow Wow.
He's like, I'm Grande Bow Wow.
Venti Bow Wow. Yeah, there was just some stuff in this movie. It was, the corporation is bad because they're trying to do the bad thing, but it just reminded me of the scene in Avengers. Why? Why do we do this? Because of him. Mm-hmm. Like, we needed some way to protect ourselves.
Well, here's the difference, though. Apex is a company.
Yeah.
They're privately owned. They have no incentive at all that is expressed to be building this monster or hiding it, this robo monster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a government entity or a government-funded entity. Their job was to protect the planet. And, yeah, Fury's right. Like, from him. When he came here, we realized we can't stand up to that. We need to do better.
I think it was an ego thing from the head of that company.
It could be.
He wanted to be the one to, hey, I did it. I saved the whole planet. All of you, come and give me adulation and everything I deserve because I had the foresight to, do all the research and put all my eggs into this basket.
But large companies don't do things like that without the guarantee of some kind of return on their investment. He wouldn't have just done it clearly he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart, right? Well, I guess it's not clear. He dies before he's able to do the villainy thing of explaining his plan.
It's true.
But, yeah, he wasn't commissioned by a government to do it, as far as we know.
No.
He was just doing it. So my whole thing was, how are you monetizing that? Like, what's your plan? What's your plan to monetize this giant mechanical monster?
Like the ships that they made.
I mean,
whatever
it would
technology
be
went on with those ships they made, that will make you rich. Like that technology will change the face of the planet.
Yeah, and she was saying that they were prototypes.
Right.
And they're like super expensive, super valuable, really powerful, whatever. That's great. But this thing, that has a clear application. I mean, not just taking people to the center of the earth, but being able to fly really quickly, producing a lot of energy, being able to handle like strange gravitational stuff. I don't know how that's supposed to work, the gravitational thing that they have in these. They don't really explain what it is. But if it's something like Stargate would have referred to as an inertial dampener, where you can fly and do these incredible maneuvers without gravity, like pulling your brain out your ear, that's a big deal.
It is.
But giant robot Godzilla... Unclear how much potential there is for monetization. It may be a thing where they're going to go to the UN or NATO or somebody like that and basically get protection money, kind of like the mob.
Right. It's or, like, hey, we killed the things that, could have potentially killed us if they so chose. But now, what are you going to do? You're going to pay me.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you need us.
Because if you don't, but I'll step on you.
This is a nice Europe you got here. Be a shame if something happened to it. I was more thinking like, all right, we're now part of your military. You're going to pay us to keep this thing around. And when you think of it that way, as a person bonding with this creature, this mechanical creature, wouldn't it make more sense for it to be a giant man? When I say man, I don't mean gender man. I mean man species.
Human.
Mankind. Human.
Yeah.
Yes. That's how you would name it. It'd be like Futurama. Human. I trust that name. But it'd make a lot more sense for it to be like Pacific Rim, where the robots look like a human.
Right.
It's man-shaped, So it doesn't matter if it's a guy and a girl running the thing. It doesn't matter what you look like. You all fit that same body type. It's easy for your mind to...
Yeah,
okay, I have 2 arms and 2 legs or whatever my particular configuration is, and then, it's going to be similar enough to this thing that I can control it. But if you're a person bonding with this thing, you're like, I don't have a tail that's the entire length of my body, so this is going to be hard to get
Are you assuming my species?
I'm not. I suppose I am.
Oh, that is not... Okay, we're going to apologize. Might be trigger warnings in this for those who are any speciesist side. We don't want to alienate anyone.
Well, I didn't want to call you out. I have seen your family on like some of the mountain monster shows.
I mean,
on History Channel.
Is what it is.
I mean, there were some rednecks trying to chase you down, and they were hearing your calls, and
haven't caught us.
Nope, they haven't. They got footage of you walking at that angle. That's that everywhere.
Angle. You mean you're right? I hadn't even thought about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, why would you? I guess they had to do it because that was the thing in the old movies that he fought Mecha Godzilla.
That's the reason they would do it. Is like, okay, the Godzilla shape is a proven shape. Let's just use that. But yeah, you would also think that it might be better. Let's have it shaped like a human.
I mean, you could have, if you're going to do that, you could have made it shaped like anything. You could have made it shaped like a big cat, a big wolf, like a parrot. Like, I don't know.
You could have found the meanest fucking dog you've ever met in your entire life, made a giant dog one, put that helmet thing on the dog, boom, giant robo attack dog. And you just have like an off button somewhere. It's like, okay, did what it's supposed to do, shut it off.
Like those big dog type creatures in Wolfenstein.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The Panzerhounds.
Panzerhounds.
Dude, those are so scary.
Oh my gosh. So one thing I found odd in this was Nathan, the scientist, the not so far as I know pilot, especially pilot of some super advanced, never before seen prototype aircraft. We'll call it flu. It's aircraft, I guess. He's the one who pilots them back out the Godzilla made hole. And then nimbly flies past both Kong and Godzilla up close because we needed those shots to happen in the movie because they look cool.
There needed to be a couple shots where they're going real close to Godzilla and they're like, fuck, and Godzilla, or no, Kong, I guess in the one scene, they look at Kong and it's like, fuck. I love the look, like it slows down as they're passing each other and they're like, what is going on?
Right, Nathan looks out and it's Kong eyeballing him and he's like, oh god, he recognizes me. I'm sorry, bro. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess he's a pilot now because they needed him to be a pilot. And I don't know, would he even know how to start it up and fly it out of there? What's the on button? I don't know. You ever got in the cockpit of an airplane? Like a jumbo jet? Stuff everywhere. How do you start it? I don't know. We'll just start hitting buttons and get lucky?
Yeah, you're right. Somebody who's like, well, look at me. I'm in this basement office, in the middle of the night working on this stuff. And then he goes to piloting some experimental craft that looks like one of those transports out of Cyberpunk 2077.
Right.
Man.
All right. So, I don't know. This comes down to the age-old question that we ask at the end of every one of our podcasts. Is this a watch or a pass? What say you, compadre?
It's definitely not a straight watch. For sure not a straight watch. It's complicated. It's one of those things where movies and TV shows are products, right? And they're not made for everybody.
Yeah.
I think this one is aimed pretty squarely at us, though. People who are into sci-fi, action, who've been following this stuff for a long time. I've probably seen 20 Godzilla movies in my life, but I think they missed. I think it's a fun movie. If you like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 or whatever, that kind of experience where you sit around watching a movie and making fun of it, which is how I watch the Paranormal Activity movies.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun. Talking to you about it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it wasn't engaging. When we talked about the Snyder Cut, the nightmare scene towards the end where the Joker, Jared Leto Joker, is talking to Batman that you talked about last time, we're both just sitting there with our mouths open. We're not saying shit to each other. There's a point in this where Godzilla stomps down on Kong's chest and he's holding him down. And it's like a climactic scene. My watch vibrated and I checked it to see what the notification was. I was not engaged. That was the thing that made me consciously think oh, this isn't very engaging. I should really be paying attention to this. But I'm not that interested. But it's oh, Pendleton sent me a 20% off coupon for a sweater or whatever. So
good deal. You better get on that.
Yeah, it's a very long walk to saying I don't recommend just watching it on your own. I do not recommend watching it on HBO Max if you don't already have it. But I do recommend watching it with somebody else. I recommend watching it with friends. It's bordering on so bad it's good because I was having fun kind of making fun of it, being why does that happen? That guy, there's no camera on that phone. And you're isn't there a camera? No, there's no camera on that. What is he doing? From that perspective, it was pretty fun. But as a movie on its own, as a product by itself, I don't think it is going to be enjoyed the way it is meant to be consumed, which is just in a straightforward, I'm watching this way. It's fun in its own way, but...
Yeah, there were some things that you mentioned that I agreed with. I appreciated that there was not one character that was all powerful, that could do everything, that anytime there was a problem, they had the solution without any sort of adversity. That was a nice thing to see in a movie, something that made sense that way. But as just, and I'm going from just the perspective of would I want to sit down by myself and just watch this movie? Would I enjoy it? And I'm going to say, no, it's a pass. For me, it's a pass. Like, there's no, unless you're really hoping that this is going to turn into some sort of extended universe, which I think the makers of this movie kind of are. I don't know where else they can go with this. It's kind of a little more open now with the Hollow Earth thing. Like,
Yeah,
you could do a lot with that.
Yeah, it opens the door to new locations, new monsters, and I think they're doing this on purpose. They're not making them complex because they don't want them to be.
Got that right.
You know, they're big, dumb action movies. Like, that's a normal thing to have. But there are gaps in logic here that are a little bit difficult to get past.
See, that's the problem is, I mean, I understand big, dumb action movie, but those were the type of eras in Hollywood that we're kind of past that, I want to say. That watching movies, and this maybe is just me, my own personal opinion, I want more than that. Like when I saw the movie Star Wars Episode 1, which I know everybody rags on it and terrible, Jar Jar Binks ruined everything, but when I watched that movie, it made me understand that if you can imagine it in your mind, if you can dream it, you can put it on screen now. Anything you want to do, any imaginable thing, you can visually make happen and make look pretty good. Mm-hmm. Even if you didn't like Jar Jar, they all looked good.
For the time, yeah, that CG actually does hold up relatively well.
Like, it looks good. Unlike when I just tried to play Half-Life 2 the other day, I downloaded it, and I'm talking to you about it. I'm like, oh my God, this does not hold up as far as graphically. I need more to my movie than that. It has to be like Terminator 2. The special effects in it were amazing, but the movie was so good. That's why obviously it should have ended there, but that's why I remember that with the fondness that I remember it with, because of how good the movie actually was. Mm-hmm. I need more than what this movie gave me.
Okay. Speaking of Jar Jar.
Okay.
Well, okay, first to clarify my point.
To see where this is going to go.
Clarify my point. It's a pass. Unless you want to watch it with friends because it's kind of fun.
Which I get that.
Yeah.
We had fun watching it that way.
Yeah.
BSing back and forth with each other. I get that.
Get a pizza, watch it with some friends. That would be the way to do it if you have access to it already. I wouldn't go out of my way otherwise unless you're like a Godzilla person.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, I have a friend who was.
Mm-hmm.
He would not that he's not anymore, but I don't even know where he is anymore. But it was like, that was the thing. Whenever there was a new one, or he just was like, hey, I bought another one from whatever year. Let's watch it. Anyway, Jar Jar. What would have fixed Jar Jar is if he turned out to be a Sith Master. Think about Jar Jar's story and all the things he was there for. What if at the end you found out that he was tagging along with the Jedi to spy on them, and he was playing the fool on purpose to make himself not look like a threat? And then he assumed a place of power in the Galactic Senate, which he did, and revealed that he was just as bad as Palpatine. That would have redeemed his character a lot. That would have explained a lot of what happened. A lot of him screwing up battles and things like that would have made a lot more sense, right?
Okay. I mean, minus the Star Wars continuity idea of there can only be one evil master and one Sith. It's not like the Jedi Council, which has a whole council and all the Jedi.
And a lot of
what they have established
in the movies, in the extended universe stuff, which Marvel and Disney and whoever, the powers that be, they say those are no longer canon, which is funny since they're pulling Ahsoka and these other characters from things like the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. Just got a little flash of anger. I was like, is that Ahsoka? What happened to not being canon? What the fuck? Anyway, just my thought. Okay. They could have done a lot more with Jar Jar. They set him up to have a really fantastic twist that they didn't take. And I've seen other theories about that.
I'd heard about that too. I'd never actually watched anything on that, but I'd read, little titles or
I've read some theories on it, but then I've also seen interviews with George Lucas where he's like, no, this is what I wanted it to be. Like, Jar Jar is just supposed to be
comic relief.
Yeah, he's like the Ewoks.
Mm-hmm. Which, like that's a twist you could throw in there that nobody would see coming, and you could really turn that character around by doing that. And that movies, you need that. Like everything that I didn't like in this movie, if they could have done something and somehow done that instead of the super predictable ending that this movie had, nothing surprised me in it. And that's not what I want out of my movies.
Yeah, hit me with something new.
Yeah. And is that being too critical to say I need more than this? I don't necessarily think it is. That I'm, fairly discerning in things that I'm going to say that I liked or didn't like. And I want it to be, it's not going to be Joker. It's not going to be something that really makes you think about the world and the state of the world and things that are going on in it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be that.
You're never going to come away feeling like you just watched Shutter Island,
right?
From a King Kong movie.
But you can do more than the bare minimum for storytelling, and you can take classic ideas, old fables, things that maybe The Boy Who Cried Wolf, or ideas that have been time tested, and use that, tweak it just a little to make it your own. And still make it great, and it not just be the same thing we've seen over and over again. It was just like watching Batman vs Superman, but with two big monsters instead of one big monster in Batman.
Yeah,
and then another big monster, and then a female monster. Out of them, Batman's just the guy.
Yeah,
the rest of them are just ridiculous.
And Wonder Woman's so out of left field that they even make the joke, "She with you? Oh, I thought she was with you." Yeah, we are being a little too critical of this one, I think. But yeah, it's one of these things where I think I'm a little salty from the way Star Wars has been handled and things like that. I did find a lot of it refreshing. Like I said, the characters being able to stand on their own and complement each other, it's a lot better. Like the whole time I kept thinking about how bad the new Star Wars stuff was. Because in the originals, you had Leia, who was a badass that nobody knew. Great shot. All that sort of thing. Yeah. That was even a joke that they continued in Spaceballs. That she was like a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Luke was just learning this stuff, and he had these latent abilities that didn't really manifest until sort of the end of the second movie. And with the new set, Han is like your cowboy. But in this one, they set it up really nicely. Finn was a soldier, frontline stormtrooper. He had all his combat training and experience. His whole life was military, and they completely sidelined him. He could have been the muscle. Poe would have been the renegade, the cowboy. Rey would have been Luke. She should have been, if they wanted to kind of repeat the same thing, you have analog, or if you want to repeat the same thing and kind of be substituting the characters, you have Anakin coming up first, then you have Luke kind of doing the same thing, then you have Rey kind of doing the same. But this time they just made Rey everything, or most things, and they just made a lot of strange choices and misused a lot of their characters. And I like that it's made me appreciate movies that handle their characters in a competent way.
In a realistic way.
Yeah, like Finn, when they land on that planet, and they're like, well, how do we get in here? And he's like, well, I used to be a janitor, so we can do this. And it's like, bullshit. You're on the front lines with Kylo Ren, and you're the janitor? I don't buy that.
Because you're not.
Yeah, because no military would be like, okay, we've given you all this training. You can do this stuff. Now we're just gonna have you empty trash cans for a while. Doesn't make any sense. It's a different set of skills.
Very particular set of skills.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. They wouldn't give him all that training and stuff and be like, okay, now you're going to change those trash cans out. The best anybody's ever done it. It's like, no, you trained him to shoot and dodge and roll and recover and fight and all this other stuff. Like, you're not... Why have you done this? Anyway, you get what I mean, though.
Yes.
It could have been so much more interesting if they had made all of those characters complement each other the way the OG character, to have each one do a thing the others couldn't do. To have them have significantly different personalities that played well off each other instead of just being kind of jokey. And I attribute a lot of that to Marvel. Just Marvel found a sense of humor that really works for a lot of their superheroes. They found kind of a personality for each of them that works really well. Some of them are very straight. Some of them are funny, mostly comical. You have ones like Iron Man who kind of plays straight a lot of the time. Like, he's kind of serious a lot of the time, and then he makes these goofy jokes. Some of them are kind of self-aware. Some of them are just funny because of context. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sometimes Thor is like your Leslie Nielsen straight man. He's funny because he doesn't understand the joke that he's a part of.
Yes. Has Marvel ruined it with what they did? They did it so well and in such a way that every other studio that's trying to just want a piece. I just want to see what it tastes like. Just want a piece of the good life.
I think so. I think they have made the cinematic universe, they have succeeded so well with it because they planned it so carefully and executed it so well. And at least for the first set of movies, as far as we can see now, with very few exceptions, they've listened to their audience and they've watched what worked and didn't work. Thor being super straightforward and serious didn't really work all that well. So they started making him bit by bit more relaxed, more funny, more confident, things like that. They've taken Iron Man from having this personality of being self-centered and narcissistic to coming to terms with the things he's done, taking responsibility for his actions, looking at his family history, dealing with repercussions of what his father did, going through these new experiences and dealing with post-traumatic stress and things like that, all the way up to where his story ends. And it's reflected in his suits. I saw this in an interview with one of the filmmakers, that his original suits are designed to protect him. The further the suits go, the more they go on this cycle where they start being about other people, to the point where when he's fighting Thanos, his suit is coming apart. It's more focused on creating weapons and things to defend everybody else than to defend him. It's willing to sacrifice parts of itself that are protecting him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead of strictly encasing him and keeping him as safe as possible. So, yeah, they had an unprecedented run of success. And it has, I think, put out this dinner bell, as Lex Luthor would say, that all the other movie studios who have a property like that are going to look at and say, well, that's what we need to do. We can have 24 movies, all of which are going to make X amount. They're going to double their budget. They're going to triple their budget. They'll make $1 billion each, whatever it is that their goal is, And
but see, that's the problem. You can't. That's like my example. My son, like every 10-year-old on the planet right now, wants to be a YouTuber. I say, number one, that's not super likely. But if that's your goal, if that's what you really want to do, the way that that's going to work, the way that you're going to make that happen is to give people something they don't get somewhere else. You cannot just look at what everybody else is doing and say, ooh, somebody made a video on Brie Larson, and so I'm going to make videos on Brie Larson. Or somebody made a video, and I'm going to do that. At some point, you may start that way, but at some point, you have to be coming up with ideas that other people aren't thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Like the lock-picking lawyer.
The lock-picking lawyer.
It's a very specific thing that he does.
It is.
And he found his niche. There's Smart Home Solver and Paul Hibbert that do smart home things and automation. There's Techmoan, who kind of looks at these weird, obscure technologies from the past and shows how we came to be the way we are now in terms of the things that we interact with every day. But yeah, then there are so many YouTube channels that start up and they just do opinion pieces and things like that. And I think that's another thing that's kind of hurting our media today, is that TV and movies and things like that have to compete with those, right? What's that guy you sent me, Ruined Leon?
Mm-hmm.
Just watching a couple of his videos, he gets tons of views, probably more views than a lot of local news stations would in a lot of cities.
Yeah.
And what's his prep time for a video? 15, 20 minutes? He just sits in front of a camera with a light on. I mean, he's got just posters and stuff in the background. He's wearing like a beanie. He's not, there's not wardrobe, makeup, all this prep. He doesn't have a staff.
There's prep for what he does for his show. Like research into these, whatever thing he's going to talk about, that he does research and like that kind of prep.
True, but he doesn't have a writing staff.
No, absolutely.
Who's doing all this stuff. He's not running on a budget of X million dollars per episode. He's got, a Sony whatever camera, this kind of microphone, a ring light. You can see the reflection in his glasses on it. Like they're competing with people on such an uneven playing field, and movies are everything is trying to compete for our attention, and they've kind of found a hack now to go for these cinematic universes.
Hello?
Hey, so another change of plans. I get to the visit and it's just mom and two little girls.
Okay.
And I had to ask where mom was because she looks like a kid herself.
Shocking.
Like, just not age or.
No, yeah, that's true. They don't.
Until they get to a certain point, and then they age a whole lot all at once.
Right? And then they look like Mama Coco.
All of this hits at once. Boom.
It all comes back.
Anyway, I'm heading home now because
Sweet. Well, then I guess we'll see you when you get home. That's awesome.
What's the plan for dinner then?
Sushi.
Sushi was the plan.
Okay. Is Tim
Yes.
doing this?
Yeah, like we were just going to meet at the place, Oishi, whatever.
Oishi, yeah, we were just
Okay.
going to meet there.
Is Tim driving over by herself?
She is.
Does she possibly want me to pick her up? Because I'm over here.
If you want to call her and ask her, yeah.
Sure. Give her a ring. See what's up.
Alright, I'll do that.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see you whenever you girls get over here. All right. Love you, babe.
Later. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet.
So, I think I've ranted enough.
Yeah, there's been some ranting in this, but you know.
I don't know how much of
That's-
it I'll leave in. I've had a lot of conversations like this lately. I've had conversations with people about all different topics about, identity and tribalism and competition and creative processes and how much, how we're in such a safe place statistically in terms of violence.
Mm.
The instances of violence are real low historically, and the reporting on violence is real high. Why?
Because
it's an interesting topic, and
that's
I think
what sells.
exactly. I think a lot of it is back in the day when you had a news station or maybe two. You probably had NBC, CBS, ABC, and they're on for news once or twice a day.
Right.
You would have a different feeling being part of that than you would being one of 30 24-hour news stations in the U.S. or however many there are.
Right.
Like in one instance, it's our responsibility to bring you the important news going on. In another instance, we have to scare the shit out of our viewers to the point that they're going to watch us because they'll be too afraid not to. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And yeah, I have so many thoughts about so many things. I wish I had a podcast to talk about.
Really? That would be very handy.
Maybe we'll do an episode where we just talk about
Random shit.
Yeah, where we just talk about the things that are on our minds. Because I don't know. I don't know if I buy that things are as bad as everybody says they are. Every generation has said the world's going to the dogs, as James May said in an interview that I saw. And look around. There are no dogs. Things generally tend to get better over time.
Some people might disagree with that.
Yeah, right now, Corona, everything else that's been going on, protests, police violence, non-police violence. I mean, it does kind of seem like it is going to the dogs at the moment.
But, there's been that throughout human history, there's always been struggle and strife, and there always will be. Mm-hmm. It's like we paint the world with this idea that kind of thing, that we're shooting for like a Star Trek-esque society where everybody gets along, there's no need for, this police force, that everything is great, and that's not going to be that way with humans, ever. Like, there's too much conflict in what humans are in our nature for that to be the case. So, I don't know. I don't know how that is ever going to change. What could happen that could make that change? Would, like in, an Avengers movie, and they talk about the Tesseract, and it maybe being the thing that can solve the world's energy crisis. And, well, if that were the case, if we had a thing that could give everybody is unlimited energy, would that solve all the problems? No, of course it wouldn't.
It would help.
It would help.
It wouldn't solve all of them, though. The world in the last, according to what I've been reading and watching, because I've had nothing but time, and I don't watch a lot of TV or whatever. I kind of read articles, I read books. I don't know. Probably stems from this weird need for me to feel like I'm not wasting time, like I'm taking in information that's useful. But from what I can tell, we have made huge progress worldwide in bringing down poverty, lowering rates of poverty. I mean, this is extreme poverty as defined by the UN.
Okay.
But the world's getting better in a lot of ways. But I don't think we'll ever be at a point where there's no conflict because it's just within our nature. I mean, look at how pissed people get about GIF versus GIF. We will always find lines along which to divide ourselves. And that...
Just so you know, the answer to that question is GIF. Thank you very much.
Actually, the answer is GIF. The guy who invented it says it's GIF.
I don't give a fuck what
I'm going to call him Clay. I'm going to call him Clay. As the
I don't care what
documentary...
he says. He's wrong. The guy who he's wrong. I'm right.
So should we start calling it a giraffe? The animal with the long neck?
Yeah. I think we should. Is her name Jean Garuffalo? I don't think it is.
Wait a minute. You mean in the English language, same letters can make different sounds or mean different things? Like READ can mean read or read?
Can't.
That's messed up.
How do you spell tomb? T-O-M-B. How do you spell, or if you spell C-O-M-B, is that coom? No, it's comb. Why? I don't know. I didn't make that rule. Actually, Gallagher does a great, I know he smashes, watermelon smashing guy, whatever. He is a very intelligent comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I watched him do a piece about that and just the English line, how one word relates to it. It was fantastic. It was one of the best ones I'd ever heard from any comedian ever. It was great. Really old at this point, but the English language, I feel sorry for anybody who isn't born in a country that natively speaks it, because it's got to be ridiculous.
It's got to be hard to learn.
Oh my gosh. Wait, why does this mean this? But this means something else entirely.
Yeah, there's a joke on Reddit like, why is Kansas Kansas and Arkansas is Arkansas? Why is it not Arkansas? Or why is it not Kansas? I'm from Wichita, Kansas.
Because the English language is an amalgamation, kind of like the American people themselves. We're an amalgamation of everywhere else, and so it's just the way it is. All of our cultures, all of our backgrounds, everything together. It's one of the things that makes this country, and I will unabashedly say this, the greatest country on the planet. But to be fair, whatever country you live in, you should think that's the greatest country on the planet. Unless it's maybe like Venezuela. Then, I mean, come on, let's be honest here.
I haven't checked our statistics. I don't know if anybody's listening from there. Probably not, but it's possible. Yeah, it's like any Latin-based language. Italian, Spanish, French. My teachers in high school were like, yeah, they're all basically different because the people in those locations screwed them up differently. You know, the Romans or whoever brought Latin north to Spain, they screwed it up in a different way than the Spanish screwed it up, you know, in a different way than the Italian. Like, it just evolved a little bit differently in isolation.
And then all of those people who screwed it all up differently, they all came here, and now we have this.
And it's interesting that we develop different words, too, for things like the lift or the elevator.
Right?
Stuff like that. Cookies, biscuits.
Right? I don't want to.
Some of it I like. Some of it makes sense. Like a cup of tea. Cuppa. It's a great term. It's a term I use. It requires explanation once. But if I ask for a cuppa, it's a lot quicker than saying, get me a cup of tea. Right? Have you not heard that?
I hadn't.
Yeah. I think it's fairly common.
You just say cuppa?
Yeah, cuppa. If there are any British out there listening,
all right, Brits,
let us know.
In.
Let us know if I'm doing that wrong. Because I watch a lot of your TV. I love it. And I've heard this term cuppa. Would you like a cuppa? It's like, what is that? That's brilliant. That's so much better.
So if I say I want a glassa, does that just give me a beer?
Don't push it.
Oh my God. All right, Hooligans. I think that's enough for us.
Yeah, this is 40% rant, 60% bitching.
Oh my goodness. There was a lot of bitching in this one, about a lot of complaining. We both said it was a pass, with some notable exceptions. Watch it with a bunch of people. Still can be fun.
It's like having a tech machine in your basement. You don't want to play it alone, but you would want to play with friends, right?
Yeah, okay. Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, until next time, I've been Joe.
I have been Ryan.
And we're out.
Godzilla doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God, it was fun.